Chandigarh, a city known for its architectural beauty and compliance with building regulations, is in a state of turmoil. But why? The core of the issue lies in the intersection of heritage recognition and the rights of private homeowners. The Chandigarh Capitol Complex, a marvel designed by the renowned architect Le Corbusier, is a proud bearer of the UNESCO World Heritage recognition. This recognition is not merely a badge of honor. It is a commitment to the preservation and celebration of cultural, natural, and intangible elements that contribute to our collective human experience. However, the concept of heritage, as defined by UNESCO, also reiterates the importance of sustainable development. It underscores the need for a balance among environmental sustainability, inclusive social development, and inclusive economic development. These principles, though noble, have sparked a controversy in Chandigarh. In this city, the private houses do not fall under the scope of heritage according to UNESCO's guidelines, yet the residents face restrictions imposed in the name of heritage preservation. A bar has been placed on the share-wise sale of private houses. This restriction, the residents argue, does not contribute to heritage preservation. After all, any person can rebuild a house within the permitted floor area ratio, or FAR, after approval of the house map. But these restrictions have created a predicament for the city's residents. They feel victimized by the Heritage Committee's decisions, arguing that these decisions infringe on their rights as homeowners. The issue has escalated to such an extent that it is now being viewed as a potential violation of human rights and natural justice. So, the question arises, is this heritage preservation or a violation of human rights? As we delve deeper into the controversy, we'll explore the human impact of these restrictions, the legal paradox they create, and the call for justice from the city's residents. Stay tuned as we unravel the complex layers of this issue that is shaking the foundations of Chandigarh's private houses. Let us delve deeper into the lives of Chandigarh's residents affected by these restrictions. We turn our attention to the Patels, a family of 4 living in a 3-story house in Chandigarh. The father, Mr. Patel, wants to sell a share of his house to finance his daughter's education abroad. However, the heritage restrictions in place have cornered him into a tight spot, restricting his ability to sell his share and consequently, his daughter's dreams. Then we have Mrs. Sharma, a widow who owns a house left by her late husband. With her children settled elsewhere, she finds it difficult to maintain the large property alone. She had planned to sell a part of it and move to a smaller, more manageable apartment. But the restrictive heritage regulations have left her stranded in a house that feels more like a burden than a home. Consider the case of the Khannas. The family of 8 siblings inherited a house from their parents. One of the brothers, Rajesh, wants to move to another city for work. Ideally, he could sell his share without disturbing the rest of the family. However, the Heritage Committee's arbitrary restrictions have obstructed this, forcing their hand to sell the entire property, a move that could potentially displace the entire family. Moreover, these restrictions are not just about selling. They also limit the ability to rebuild or renovate. Take the case of the Guptas. They wanted to renovate their ancestral home to accommodate their growing family. However, they found their hands tied by the heritage regulations. These stories are not isolated instances but represent thousands of families in Chandigarh. The socioeconomic impact of these restrictions is far-reaching. They not only affect the residents' fundamental rights of selling and renovating their properties, but also hinder the city's overall economic development. The stories of these residents illustrate the harsh reality of this issue. But how does this situation align with the guidelines of UNESCO and the Heritage Committee of Chandigarh? The answer is quite intriguing. Let's dive into it. UNESCO's guidelines are fundamentally rooted in the preservation of cultural, natural, intangible, and digital heritage. They emphasize sustainable development in harmony with environmental sustainability, inclusive social development, and inclusive economic development. These principles are designed to protect and preserve outstanding universal value, or OUV, while also integrating sustainable development principles. On the other hand, the Heritage Committee of Chandigarh seems to be in a bit of a paradox. While the city's Capitol complex, designed by the renowned Le Corbusier, exemplifies UNESCO World Heritage recognition, the private houses of Chandigarh city have been subject to restrictions that are not quite in line with the UNESCO guidelines. These private houses, which are known for their compliance with regulations and almost zero violations, are being prevented from being sold share-wise. This restriction does not contribute to heritage preservation. After all, any person can rebuild a house within the permitted floor area ratio or far after approval of the house map. This situation even seems to infringe upon the rights of co-owners and residents, creating a tension between the principles of heritage preservation and the principles of human rights and natural justice. Moreover, it's notable that the Heritage Committee has not provided any clear observations or rulings on these issues in its latest meetings. The bar on the sale of a share in a house appears to be an arbitrary decision that has significant implications for the city's residents and their property rights. So, it seems the guidelines are not quite in harmony with the situation on the ground. The paradox lies in the tension between the UNESCO guidelines' focus on preserving outstanding universal value, sustainable development, and the rights of residents, and the restrictions being imposed on the private houses of Chandigarh. This tension is a critical issue that warrants further examination and discussion. Now let's consider the implications for human rights and natural justice. In the heart of the controversy lies an essential human right, the right to housing and property. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 25 states explicitly that everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being, which includes housing. The restriction on private houses in Chandigarh does not merely touch upon the right to property but infringes on this basic human right. When we delve into the realm of property rights, we find that they are a fundamental aspect of natural justice. Natural justice encompasses the rights of individuals to own, use, and dispose of their property. However, the current restrictions on the sale of shares in private houses in Chandigarh are a direct violation of these principles. Thousands of homeowners are unable to exercise their rights to their property fully, leading to a significant loss of wealth. Moreover, the arbitrary nature of these restrictions raises serious questions about the exercise of power. The Heritage Committee, while tasked with the preservation of heritage, seems to be overstepping its mandate. Without clear guidelines or observations in its minutes, the committee's decision to bar the sale of shares in private houses appears unjust and arbitrary. In addition, we must consider the social and economic implications of these restrictions. They not only hamper the economic development of the city, but also cause social dislocation. If a family member decides to move to another city, the entire family is uprooted, disrupting their lives and potentially pushing them into financial hardship. Lastly, let's not forget the impact on the city's urban development. The restrictions on the sale of shares in private houses could lead to a lack of housing availability, which is a considerable concern given India's growing population. It is evident that these restrictions pose a significant challenge to the principles of human rights and natural justice. The call for justice is loud and clear. It's time for the administration and UNESCO to reconsider these restrictions and prioritize the rights and well-being of the residents of Chandigarh. It is clear that the residents of Chandigarh are facing a serious issue, but what can we do about it? The answer lies in public awareness and advocacy. It's time to bring this issue to the forefront of global consciousness. We can't stand idle while the rights of citizens are being infringed upon in the name of heritage preservation. This isn't just about property rights, it's about human rights, about the ability to live in a place without fear of arbitrary restrictions. So how can we help? First, we need to understand the situation. Educate yourself about the intricacies of the UNESCO Heritage Guidelines and their interpretation. Understand the plight of the residents of Chandigarh and the impact this issue has on their lives. Knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better equipped we are to help. Next, we need to spread the word. Share this video with your friends, family, and social networks. Discuss the issue with those around you. The more people know about this, the more pressure we can put on the authorities to reconsider their decisions. We can also support the residents of Chandigarh by advocating for their rights. Write to your local representatives, urging them to take action. Sign and share petitions calling for a review of the UNESCO guidelines and their application in Chandigarh. Every voice counts, and together we can make a difference. Lastly, consider donating to legal aid societies who are fighting this battle in the courts. Every bit helps in ensuring that the residents of Chandigarh get the justice they deserve. Remember, this isn't just about Chandigarh. It's about every city, every town, and every village that could face similar issues in the future. It's about standing up for what's right and ensuring that heritage preservation doesn't come at the cost of people's rights. Stand with the residents of Chandigarh. Support their fight for justice and human rights. Together, we can make a difference. Let's not let heritage become a hindrance to human rights. Let's ensure that the voice of Chandigarh is heard, loud and clear.